In this video, we're going to talk about the blower motor diagnostics. In our prior videos, we've already checked the thermostat, we've checked the air handler, and if you remember back to the air handler diagnostic, we come to a point in that where we say, okay, does the blower motor have supply voltage? Because it isn't working. So I have a blower motor with supply voltage, it's not working. We're going to skip over to the blower motor diagnostics. This is important that we do this, okay, because without this, you cannot say it's necessarily a bad blower motor. So when we come into blower motor diagnostics, the first thing we need to do is check and see if this is an ECM motor, okay, electronically communicated motor. Is it an ECM motor? If the answer to that is yes, you need to think about, do you have an ECM test kit? Okay, this is important to properly diagnose an ECM motor. If you do not have a test kit, you need to get one. Okay, if you have a test kit, you want to run the motor tests per the directions of the manufacturer. Okay, if the motor tests properly, you need to check the bearings. Okay, are the bearings good? If the motor does not test properly or has bad bearings, you're going to replace the blower motor. Okay. ECM motors, they're either working or not working. You can sometimes replace the module on the end of the motor, but most often to not, you're going to end up replacing the blower motor. Okay, if the bearings are bad, you're going to replace the whole motor. Okay, if it's not an ECM motor, okay, which the majority right now that you're seeing in the field are not ECM motors, okay? ECM motors have a black end on it where the power head is. Okay, it's usually plastic and it usually has many more wires than just the 3 or 4 wires that are for the traditional multi-speed motors. Okay, you're going to disconnect the motor from the power supply. You want to check the resistance from run to common, from start to common, and start to run. Okay, what you're doing is you're looking for numbers. Okay, if you want to analyze the numbers, your start to run is going to be your highest number. Your start to common and your run to common will add up to be close to the start to run. If you find any opens, okay, most digital meters say OL. If you find any opens, you have a bad motor. One of the windings has burned out. Okay. So we're going to ask, do all of these windings have resistance within a range? Okay, if the answer is yes, okay, the next thing you're going to do is check the run capacitor. I would always check the run capacitor regardless, okay? If the answer on the resistance is no, replace the blower motor. Don't even mess around with it. And when you replace the blower motor, you're always going to replace the run capacitor. Do not ever replace a motor without replacing the capacitor. It makes no sense. Okay, is the run capacitor good? You're going to check the capacitance. Okay, most meters will do this now, complete with the microfarads. Okay, make sure you don't have any wires connected to the capacitor when you check these, okay, because you will not get good readings if it's in series or parallel with anything else. If the run capacitor is not within 10% of the tolerance, replace the capacitor. Okay, if the run capacitor is good, you're going to go back down here and you're going to say, okay, are the bearings good? Wiggle the bearings around, feel it, see if it moves properly. Okay, reconnect it and look at the amperages. If the amperages are high and everything else checks out good, you might have a problem with the bearings. Okay, normally you can tell that. Okay, if the bearings are not good, replace the motor. Okay, if the bearings are good, you've checked everything in with the motor that you can possibly check. It's time to go back to the air handler diagnostics. So again, if you have power to the motor and the motor's not running, you either have a bad motor electronically, bad motor mechanically, in other words, frozen bearings, or you have a problem you missed back in the air handler. Okay, if you have an ECM motor, you need to have an ECM test kit. There's ways to test it without it, but the easiest way, the most correct way is to use an ECM test kit.